There was a man whose name was written in the registers of heaven long before his feet ever walked upon the dust of the earth. In a time when the world was young and the stars seemed to hang lower in the evening sky, this man possessed a secret. It was not a secret born of hidden gold or whispered conspiracies in the courts of ancient kings. It was the secret of a blameless heart. The nations around him bowed to wood and stone, offering their children to flames that could not see and gods that could not hear. Yet, this man looked past the horizon, beyond the visible canopy of the cosmos, and fixed his gaze upon the invisible Creator. He walked beneath a sky heavy with silence, yet he knew the maker of the storm. The land of Uz was a place of vast horizons and shifting sands. It was a realm where wealth was measured not by coins, but by the breathing abundance of the fields. Thousands of sheep moved like white clouds across the green hillsides. Camels stood like silent guardians against the desert heat. Oxen plowed the deep furrows of the earth, and the laughter of 7 sons and 3 daughters echoed through the corridors of a sprawling estate. This man was the greatest of all the men of the East. His robes were woven from the finest wool, and his counsel was sought by elders at the city gates. When he spoke, princes placed their hands over their mouths. When he walked into the marketplace, the young men stepped back in reverence, and the aged stood to honor his presence. He was a pillar of righteousness in a world fracturing into chaos. Yet, his greatest concern was not the preservation of his vast empire. It was the purity of his children's souls. Every morning, before the sun had fully cresting the eastern mountains, the man would rise while the dew was still fresh upon the grass. He would approach a simple, rugged stone altar that stood at the edge of his property. This altar, built from unhewn rock, was his sanctuary. It was the place where earth met heaven. One by one, he would offer burnt sacrifices for each of his children, whispering their names into the cool morning air. He thought to himself, "It may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." He did not wait for a visible transgression. He guarded the invisible borders of their spirits. The smoke of the altar rose toward the heavens, a continuous fragrant offering of intercession. This was his ritual. This was his devotion. He was a man hedged about by the favor of the Almighty. But far beyond the perception of mortal eyes, beneath the vaulted chambers of eternity, a celestial gathering was taking place. The sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and among them came the accuser. He was a wanderer of the cosmos, a restless spirit who walked to and fro upon the earth, searching for a single tear in the fabric of human fidelity. The Creator looked down upon the terrestrial sphere, his voice resounding like gentle thunder. "Have you considered my servant Job?" The name echoed through the heavenly courts. "There is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil." The accuser smiled, a cold and calculated expression that had brought down empires. "Does Job fear God for nothing? You have placed a hedge around him, around his household, and around all that he has. You have blessed the work of his hands. But stretch out your hand now, and touch all that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." The challenge was issued. It was not a test of Job's physical strength, but a cosmic trial of the human soul. The Lord spoke, granting permission, setting the boundary of the adversary's power. "Behold, all that he has is in your power. Only do not lay a hand on his person." The accuser departed from the presence of the Lord, carrying with him a tempest of absolute devastation. The day began like any other. The sun rose with its accustomed brilliance, casting a golden light over the estate of Uz. Job sat within his home, perhaps looking out toward the horizon, where his children were feasting at their eldest brother's house. The air was peaceful. Then, the sound of running feet broke the serenity. A messenger arrived, his breath coming in ragged gasps, his clothes torn and stained with blood. The oxen were plowing, and the donkeys feeding beside them. The messenger cried, when the Sabaeans fell upon them and took them away. They have killed the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. Before the words could fully settle in Job's mind, another messenger appeared from the opposite direction, his eyes wide with a terror that seemed to transcend the physical world. The fire of God fell from heaven, he wept, and burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them, and I alone have escaped to tell you. The stone altar stood distant in the fields, silent as the smoke of an unnatural fire darkens the sky. A third messenger rushed into the courtyard, his voice trembling with the weight of his news. The Chaldeans formed 3 bands and made a raid on the camels and took them away and killed the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. In a matter of minutes, the greatest fortune of the East had vanished like mist before the morning sun. The fields were empty. The servants lay dead in the dirt. But the final, most crushing blow was yet to land. A 4th messenger entered. He did not run. He walked slowly, his head bowed, his chest heaving with a sorrow too profound for words. He stood before Job, unable to look him in the eye. Your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house, he whispered, and suddenly a great wind came from the wilderness and struck the 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon the young people, and they are dead, and I alone have escaped to tell you. Silence descended upon the room. It was a heavy, suffocating silence that seemed to press the very breath from Job's lungs. Everything was gone, his wealth, his legacy, his beloved children, all swept away in a single, catastrophic hour. The world watched to see if the accuser's prophecy would come to pass. Would he curse the God who had given and then allowed to be taken away? Job stood up. His movements were slow, deliberate, filled with a tragic dignity. He reached for his magnificent robe and rent it in 2, a physical manifestation of his fractured heart. He took a blade and shaved his head, letting the hair fall to the earth. Then he did what no natural man would do in the hour of absolute ruin. He fell to the ground, and he worshipped. Naked I came from my mother's womb, Job whispered into the dust, and naked shall I return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In all this, Job did not sin, nor charge God with wrong. The adversary had stripped the tree of its leaves, its branches, and its fruit, but the root of faith remained anchored deep within the unseen rock. Yet, the trial was not over. The celestial courts convened once more. The Lord spoke again of his servant Job, noting that he still held fast to his integrity, although the accuser had moved the Lord to destroy him without cause. Skin for skin, the adversary countered. All that a man has he will give for his life, but stretch out your hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will surely curse you to your face. The boundary was moved, but not removed. Behold, he is in your hand, but spare his life. The affliction fell upon Job like a physical darkness. From the soles of his feet to the crown of his head, painful boils erupted, turning his flesh into a landscape of constant, burning torment. He could no longer sit within his home. He could no longer bear the touch of his finest robes. He went out to the city dump, the place of ashes and discarded things, and sat among the refuse. He took a piece of broken pottery to scrape his weeping sores. The great prince of Uz was now a spectacle of misery, isolated from humanity, breathing in the dust of his own ruin. His wife, looking upon the shadow of the man she loved, could bear the agony no longer. Her faith broke beneath the weight of their shared grief. Do you still hold fast to your integrity? she cried. Her voice cracked with despair. "Curse God and die." Job looked at her through eyes swollen with pain. He did not answer with anger, but with the profound wisdom of a man who understood the sovereignty of the Creator. "You speak as one of the foolish women speaks," he said softly. "Shall we indeed accept good from God, and shall we not accept adversity?" In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. Word of the catastrophe traveled across the desert sands, reaching the ears of 3 men who had long known Job in his days of glory: Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. They journeyed from their respective lands, making an appointment to come and mourn with him and to comfort him. But when they lifted their eyes from afar, they did not recognize the man sitting among the ashes. They raised their voices and wept. They rent their robes and sprinkled dust upon their heads toward heaven. They approached the ash heap and sat down with him on the ground. For 7 days and 7 nights, no one spoke a single word to him. They saw that his grief was very great. The silence of the desert surrounded them, broken only by the sound of the wind moving through the dry grass and the labored breathing of the suffering patriarch. The stone altar of his past sacrifices was far away, forgotten by the world. But the reality of sacrifice was now being lived out in every breath Job drew. When the 7 days ended, the silence broke. Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. "Let the day perish on which I was born," he cried. "Let that day be darkness. Let not God regard it from above, nor let the light shine upon it." He did not curse God, but he wept for his own existence. "Why did I not die at birth? For now I would have lain down and been quiet. I would have slept then and been at rest." His friends, listening to his lament, could no longer remain silent. They operated under the theology of their age, a belief that God blesses the righteous and immediately punishes the wicked. If Job was suffering this severely, they reasoned, he must be hiding a great and terrible sin. Eliphaz spoke first, his voice gentle but firm. "Remember, I pray you, whoever perished being innocent, or where were the upright cut off? Even as I have seen, those who plow iniquity and sow trouble reap the same." He urged Job to confess his hidden transgressions, to return to the Almighty, so that his prosperity might be restored. Job defended his innocence, his voice rising from the ashes. "Teach me, and I will hold my tongue. Cause me to understand wherein I have erred." How forceful are right words! But what does your arguing prove? He felt the arrows of the Almighty within him, their poison drinking up his spirit. He felt abandoned, not only by his health and wealth, but by the very friends who had come to comfort him. Bildad then spoke, harsher than Eliphaz. "Doth God pervert judgment, or doth the Almighty pervert justice? If your children sinned against him, he has cast them away for their transgression." The words pierced Job's heart like a sword. The memory of his children, for whom he had offered sacrifices every morning at the stone altar, was weaponized against him. Job acknowledged the greatness of God, but questioned how a mere mortal could contend with him. "He is wise in heart and mighty in strength," Job declared. "Who has hardened himself against him and prospered? He removes the mountains, and they know it not. He shakes the earth out of its place. If I wash myself with snow water, and make my hands ever so clean, yet you will plunge me into the pit, and my own clothes will abhor me." Job desired a mediator, someone who could stand between him and the Creator. "There is no umpire between us," he lamented, "who might lay his hand upon us both." Zophar, the third friend, spoke with dogmatic certainty. "Know therefore that God exacts of you less than your iniquity deserves. Can you search out the deep things of God? Can you find out the limit of the Almighty?" They continued this cycle of accusation and defense, their words becoming sharper, their arguments more entrenched. Job became a target for their theological definitions, his real agony lost beneath their desire to be correct. Job looked at them, his eyes filled with a weary disdain. "No doubt you are the people, and wisdom will die with you. But I have understanding as well as you. I am not inferior to you." He turned his gaze away from his earthly accusers and looked directly toward the heavens. "Though he slay me, yet will I trust him. Even so, I will defend my own ways before him. He also shall be my salvation, for a hypocrite could not come before him." The long nights bled into long days. Job's body grew weaker, but his spiritual perception seemed to sharpen through the fire of his affliction. He spoke of the brevity of human life, comparing man to a flower that comes forth and is faded, a shadow that continues not. He asked the question that has echoed through every generation of humanity: if a man dies, shall he live again? In the depths of his despair, a sudden ray of prophetic light pierced his darkness. It was a vision that transcended his current misery, a revelation of things to come at the end of time. "For I know that my Redeemer lives," Job proclaimed, his voice growing steady and powerful amidst the ashes. "And he shall stand at last on the earth, and after my skin is destroyed, this I know, that in my flesh I shall see God, whom I shall see for myself, and my eyes shall behold, and not another. How my heart yearns within me." The friends were silenced by the depth of his conviction, but a fourth voice suddenly entered the dialogue. Elihu, a young man who had listened quietly to the entire debate, could no longer contain his wrath. His anger burned against Job because he justified himself rather than God, and his anger burned against the three friends because they had found no answer and yet had condemned Job. Elihu spoke of the majesty of God, reminding them that God speaks to man through dreams, through visions of the night, and through affliction to bring back his soul from the pit. "Look at the heavens and see," Elihu commanded, "and behold the clouds which are higher than you. If you sin, what do you accomplish against him? If you are righteous, what do you give him? God is great, and we know him not. The number of his years is unsearchable." As Elihu spoke, the sky above the land of Uz began to change. The bright desert sun was obscured by rapidly gathering clouds. The wind began to groan across the landscape, picking up the dust and ashes, swirling them into a vortex of darkness. A storm was approaching, not a natural tempest, but a cosmic whirlwind that carried the immediate presence of the divine. Elihu's voice faltered as the thunder began to roll, deep and resonant, shaking the very foundations of the earth. Out of the heart of the whirlwind, a voice spoke. It did not answer Job's questions about his suffering. It did not explain the challenge of the accuser. Instead, it shifted the entire perspective of the universe. "Who is this, who darkens counsel by words without knowledge?" the Lord demanded. "Now prepare yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me, if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? To what were its foundations fastened? Or who laid its cornerstone when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy?" The questions cascaded over Job like a mighty waterfall. The Creator spoke of the sea, barred within its doors, of the morning, commanded to take hold of the ends of the earth, of the gates of death, opened to his gaze. "Have you entered the treasury of snow, or have you seen the treasury of hail? Can you bind the cluster of the Pleiades, or loose the belt of Orion?" The Lord described the wild goats of the rock, the wild donkey set free from the bond of labor, the ostrich that laughs at the horse and its rider, the horse clothed with thunder that mocks at fear, and the eagle that mounts up at his command and makes its nest on high. The vast, intricate, beautifully wild design of creation was displayed before Job's eyes. The universe was not chaotic. It was held together by a wisdom that far exceeded human comprehension. Job listened, his heart dissolving within him. The pride that had caused him to demand a trial before God evaporated in the presence of absolute holiness. He saw himself not as the center of the universe, but as a fragile creature sustained by an infinite and loving Creator. "Behold, I am vile," Job whispered into the roaring wind. "What shall I answer you? I lay my hand over my mouth. Once I have spoken, but I will not answer. Yes, twice, but I will proceed no further." The Lord spoke a second time from the whirlwind, challenging Job to look upon the mighty creatures of the earth. Behemoth, which eats grass like an ox, whose strength is in his hips, whose bones are like beams of bronze. And Leviathan, the king over all the children of pride, whose breath kindles coals, and whose heart is as hard as stone. If man cannot stand before the creatures of the earth, how can he stand before the one who created them? Job bowed his head into the dust, completely broken and completely healed at the same time. "I know that you can do everything," he declared, "and that no purpose of yours can be withheld from you. You asked, 'Who is this who hides counsel without knowledge?' Therefore I have uttered what I did not understand, things too wonderful for me, which I did not know. I have heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. Therefore I abhor myself and repent in dust and ashes." The storm began to recede, leaving behind a profound, holy stillness. The controversy was ended. The accuser was vanquished, his premise proven false. Job loved God for who he was, not for what he gave. The Lord turned his attention to the three friends. His wrath was kindled against Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, because they had not spoken of him what was right, as his servant Job had. He commanded them to take 7 bulls and 7 rams, go to Job, and offer up a burnt sacrifice for themselves. "And my servant Job shall pray for you," the Lord said, "for I will accept him, lest I deal with you according to your folly." The friends brought the animals to the ancient, rugged stone altar. Job stood before the altar, his body still marked by the scars of his affliction, but his spirit restored to unparalleled authority. He laid his hands upon the sacrifices and prayed for the very men who had wounded him in his darkest hour. As he lifted his voice in intercession, the chains of his own captivity were broken. The Lord restored Job's losses when he prayed for his friends. The blessing of the Lord returned to the land of Uz, like a river overflowing its banks. The Lord blessed the latter days of Job more than his beginning. 14,000 sheep now covered the hillsides, 6,000 camels stood in his courtyards, 1,000 yoke of oxen turned the fertile earth, and 1,000 female donkeys grazed in his pastures. He was blessed again with 7 sons and 3 daughters. His daughters, Jemimah, Keziah, and Keren Happuch, were found to be the most beautiful women in all the land, and their father gave them an inheritance among their brothers, a testament to the grace and expansive love that now defined his household. Job lived to see his children, his grandchildren, and his great-grandchildren, 4 generations of a family born out of the ashes of absolute ruin. After this, Job died, old and full of days. He left behind a legacy that would echo down through the millennia, a beacon of light for every soul traveling through the dark valleys of suffering and confusion. His story remains etched in the sacred scriptures, a living testament that our pain is never invisible to heaven, that our trials have a cosmic purpose, and that the Redeemer we long for truly lives. The stone altar of Uz has long since crumbled into the dust of the ancient desert. The wealth of the East has vanished into the forgotten pages of history. But the strength of Job's faith endures, reminding every generation that when everything is stripped away, when the night is at its darkest and the silence of God is loudest, there remains an eternal promise. For the God who allows the storm is the very same God who speaks from the whirlwind, guiding his children toward an eternal redemption that no earthly tragedy can ever destroy.